Welcome back everyone, Patrick here, and moving on to another question dealing with exponents. So we have a bunch of expressions here that we have to evaluate, different kinds of scenarios. So starting with part A, we got negative 4 to the power of 3 divided by negative 2, which is not in brackets, to the power of 4. So notice that for all of these, we're going to be using BEDMAS. Right, so just as a quick review, the B is brackets, E is exponents, and then the division, multiplication, doesn't matter which one you use in which order, and then addition, subtraction comes after division and multiplication. Okay, so over here, notice that we have two exponential expressions. So we got negative 4 to the power of 3. So let's work with that first. So we got negative 4 to the power of 3. You could do it all in one in your calculator if you want. Just make sure you put that in brackets, or if you want to expand it, you can rewrite it like that, which would be positive 16 to the times negative 4, right? Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. Then multiplied by the negative 4 would give you negative 64. So this over here would end up being negative 64. And then we're going to be dividing by this negative 2 to the power of 4. Now you got to be careful. I've gone through this in a previous video. If this is not in brackets, then this negative is separate from this base over here. So another way to rewrite something like this is negative 1 times 2 to the power of 4. Okay, if there was a bracket here, then it would just be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, 4 times, right? But the fact that there is no bracket there, you got to split up that sort of imaginary quote-unquote negative 1 from that exponential expression. Only this positive 2 is going to the power of 4. So this would end up being negative 1. If you want to expand this, it'd be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. And then this here would be 16, right? Or 2 to the power of 4 is 16. And then negative 1 times 16 would give us negative 16, like that. So this, right, entire expression here ends up being negative 16. Now if you had negative 2 in brackets to the power of 4, that would end up being positive 16. So it would totally change the question. So you just got to be careful with something like this versus something like this. Just be on the lookout for that. All right, and then we got negative 64 divided by negative 16, and negative divided by a negative gives us a positive. So the final answer would be positive 4 for this over here. Moving on to B, we got 3 to the power of 3 minus 3 to the power of 2. So notice we have exponential expressions and subtraction. Well, according to BEDMAS, we got to do the exponents first. So 3 to the power of 3 would give us 27, minus 3 to the power of 2 would be 9, and then that would end up being 18. So that would be the answer to part B. Part C, notice that we have exponential expressions, and then we have addition, subtraction. So we got to do the exponential expressions first. So let's work with both of these separately. So 1 to the power of 4, that's just 1, right? 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 is 4. And then we have plus, what's 5 to the power of 0? Well, anything, right? I've gone through this in a video before. Sorry, not 0. But anything to the power of 0 would just be 1, right? So this 5 to the power of 0 ends up being 1, minus 1 to the power of 2, that is just 1. And then over here, be careful, because we have minus, and then we have this entire exponential expression. So we got to work with this first. Negative 1 to the power of 9, negative 1 to the power of an odd exponent, as we've gone through before, is just negative 1 all the time. Right, so this entire thing here is negative 1, so we're subtracting negative 1. So the negative 1 here would go in brackets. Okay, and so we can simplify now. Let's notice 1 plus 1, that would give us 2, and let's rewrite this minus 1, and then negative, negative turn into a positive, like that. And then notice the negative 1 plus 1, that nets out to 0, so we would just be left with a 2. All right, so just be careful when you're going through stuff like this. Make sure that you're doing it in multiple steps if you have to get the correct answer. Okay, over here in part D, we have 5 to the power 2 minus 2 to the power 2 in brackets, minus 3 to the power 2 minus 4 to the power 2 in brackets as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with the brackets first, right? The brackets come first, so let's work with this bracket first. So we'd have 5 to the power of 2 minus 3 to the, or 2 to the power 2 rather. So notice we have exponential expressions. Subtracting, we got to work with the exponents first. So 5 to the power 2 is 25 minus 2 to the power 2, that gives us 4. That would be 21. So this entire bracket here ends up being 21 minus, now let's work with this entire bracket. So we'd have 3 to the power 2 minus 4 to the power 2, which would be 9 minus 16, which would be, what? Negative 7? Like that. Right? And so from here, this negative 7 ends up being this entire bracket. So it would be 21 minus negative 7, like that. And so these two negatives would turn into a positive. 21 plus 7 would give us 28. And then over here in part E, we have 1 over 4 to the power 2 and then negative 2 over 3 to the power of 3. Okay, so notice that we have two exponential expressions that we're multiplying, but notice that exponents come first before multiplication. So let's work with both of these exponential expressions first. So we got 1 over 4 to the power of 2. Multiple ways to do this. So 2 is not too high of a number, so we can maybe even write it in expanded form like that. 1 over 4 times 1 over 4. 1 times 1 gives us 1. 4 times 4 gives us 16. Another way to do this is you could take the numerator, or sorry, it's not negative 1, it's positive 1 to the power of 2 over the denominator, right? You could take, just in general, if you have a fraction to the power of something, you could take the numerator to that power, you could take the denominator to that power. It's just whatever those are, make sure that you put them in brackets. It's not as critical here, but when you're dealing with negatives, it is critical, right? So we just applied this rule over here. 1 to the power 1 is 1, 4 to the power of 2 is 16. Right, so whichever way you do it, this first term here ends up being 1 over 16, like that. And then we'd have negative 2 over 3 to the power of 3. So this would be negative 2 over 3 to the power of 3. So it would be negative 2 over 3 times negative 2 over 3 times negative 2 over 3. Like that, right? That's one way to write it. Or if you want, as we did with that rule, we could take the negative 2, that could be to the power of 3, and then we could take 3 to the power of 3, like that. Negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2 would give us negative 8. 3 times 3 times 3 would give us positive 27. Or over here, negative 2 to the power of 3 would give us negative 8. 3 to the power of 3 would give us 27. Right, so whichever way you do it, this ends up being negative 8 over 27, like that. All right, and then we can do the multiplication because we simplified the exponential expressions first. So we'd have 1 times negative 8, which would give us negative 8 like that. And then we'd have 16 times 27. We can do it in a calculator. Let's maybe just review some multiplication over here. So 7 times 6 would give us 42, so we would put 2, and then we would distribute the 4 up here, so then we would do 6 times 2, which would give us 12, plus 4 would give us 16. And then what would happen is we'd have 7 times 1, which would give us 7. Remember, in the next line, there's like an imaginary 0 there, so we do 1 times 7, which gives us 7, then 1 times 2, which gives us 2, and then adding everything, 6 plus 7 gives us 13, so we carry over the 13, and then we would have 2 plus 1 plus 1, which would give us 4. So we'd have negative 8 over 432, like that. And then from here, notice that this fraction we can simplify. We can definitely divide. They're both even numbers, so we could divide both by 2, so we'd end up with negative 4. 432 divided by 2 would give us what? 216. And then notice we could divide by 2 again. So we'd have negative 2 over 216 divided by 2 would give us 108. And then notice we could divide by 2 again, which would be negative 1 over, that would be what, 54? So negative 1 over 54 would end up being the final answer. You could have also, at this point, just divided by negative 8 and then divided by 8 and then 432. You could have divided by 8 as well to get to here right away. I did it in multiple steps. If you're using a calculator that does this, then it's going to give you that answer right away when you multiply these. But it depends on the calculator you're using. Your teacher may want you to show more work in simplifying, so that's how you could do it. Right? So whichever way you do it, negative 1 over 54 is the final answer. And then part F, we have 100 times, in brackets, 1 plus 0.02, and then all of that is to the power of 3. So here, you got to be careful with your BEDMAS. So first we got to work with the bracket. So we would work with this bracket over here. So notice we could add these. So it would be 100, and then we have 1.02 to the power of 3. So notice we're multiplying here, right? But we have an exponent, so we would have to first deal with the exponential expression. 1.02 to the power of 3 would be 1.0618, or sorry, 61208, like that, right? If you do that in your calculator, and then this multiplied by this, we could just take this and shift the decimal over, so it would be 106.1208, like that. So that would be the final answer for F. So brackets first, then exponents, then the multiplication.